Good morning, my farming friends. It's me, Waddles. Oh my gosh, bamboo. Bamboo is beautiful. But not only that, it's getting a brand new super shiny use very soon. With that being the case, now is a better time than ever to consider farming this stuff inside of your world. Bamboo farms is the name of the game. Today, I'm going to show you how to build a super simple bamboo farm, a medium one, and a high efficiency, high productivity farm. Your world needs at least one of these things. Do me a quick favor and tap that like button, because after looking at farm number 1, you might forget. This farm is amazingly simple. Like, so easy. In fact, this farm is so easy to build that I don't even need to open the materials chest because they're all in the hotbar. And you don't even need a diamond sword. We could downgrade to a wooden sword, and the bone meal, well, the bone meal is for a little bit of science. Because this is farm number 1, let's talk mechanics. When it comes to bamboo, if we want to harvest this stuff, we've got a couple options. But if we're going to manually harvest it, a sword. A sword is the way to go. Continuing our science for a second with a couple more plants of bamboo, check this out. A row of 8 bamboo plants. If we're going to farm this stuff manually, I recommend farming it in rows of 8. That 8 number, it all comes down to reach. Check this out. If I walk up to this simple bamboo farm and try and harvest it, I'll be able to reach 4, sometimes 5 bamboo plants, depending on where the plant landed on the block. You see, bamboo has a slightly randomized placement thing where it lands on not the same spot on a block every single time. But sword plus 8 blocks. That's basically it for this farm. To build farm number 1, the farm that is so simple, a blind and deaf walrus would be able to build this thing. All I'm going to need you to do is do an 8x8 square of bamboo plants on the ground. I've got 8 that way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Plant that 8x8 square and then, well, plant the square. Fully fill it in. Fully fill that square in, and then you wait. Once your farm is grown a little bit, grab a sword and walk along the side of the farm while holding down the use button, and you'll be able to harvest all of the bamboo. Keep moving around your farm in a square, and yeah, you'll chop it all down. After you've chopped all of the bamboo plants down, run into the middle, jump around, and you'll pick up all the bamboo. It's that easy. That's all there is to it. Maybe you're like me and you care about the aesthetics. A random 8x8 square of bamboo on the ground might look a little bit random, so consider placing something around it. Maybe like scaffolding or something? I don't know. Scaffolding is literally made out of bamboo and kind of matches the aesthetics. And so, that is farm number 1. Now, let's go from the Stone Age to the Redstone Age for farm number 2. Farm number 2, it is basically just as simple, but even more automatic. If you don't mind manually harvesting your farms, Bamboo Farm 1 is great. But if you like the idea of your farms just working for you while you're near them, then farm number 2. Farm number 2 all the way. It's so simple, and it's really compact too. When it comes to the materials on this farm, you've got some options here, but exact amounts. In exact amounts, get these things to build one small tile of your bamboo farm. And bamboo too. Kind of forgot that. When figuring out our second farm, I had a couple things in mind. Thing number 1 is keep it relatively simple. Thing number 2 is keep it compact. If you want this farm to get a little bit more productive, you expand the farm. But as you start to expand this farm, it will definitely start to get bigger and it'll start to get a little bit more advanced. You're going to want to start this farm build by placing a double chest or some kind of container on the ground and have hoppers going into it. After that, we need mud. We're going to want to plant the bamboo on mud because check this out. If I drop something on mud, the hoppers pick it up right through the block. It's like perfect. So mud on top of the hoppers, plant the bamboo on top of the mud. That looks good. Now we need solid building blocks over here. Basically anything will do. Then we're going to need pistons. On this farm this time, we're going to use pistons to harvest the farm instead of swords. When you place your pistons, you're going to want to have them facing inwards, just like that. And then, after you do that, we're going to need observers, also facing inwards. We're going to use observers to detect when the bamboo plant actually grows and fire the piston. To actually do that, we need more building blocks right behind the piston and a little bit more redstone dust on top of those building blocks as well. Now, it is a sad but true disclaimer that I have to make, but if you're playing on Bedrock Edition, you're going to need to change this farm a little bit, and I'm really sorry. For some reason, mud seems inconsistent on Bedrock. It doesn't really pick items up through the block, so put a hopper minecart line, small one, looping around, dropping it into hoppers and then into a chest. I mean, I know it's not the best, but it's still going to work. It's still going to be super simple. All the redstone is really the same. Up on the top of this farm, you will need a roof, otherwise the bamboo will spill out. To make it a little bit cheaper, maybe use slabs. Over on the side of this very simple contraption, I put glass. Do you need glass? No, I just put glass so you could see in. Look at that. And that's it. Build this farm, stand around this farm in your world, let it run, and you'll get bamboo inside of the chest for you. Now this is the medium tier farm. Now built like this, very, very simple. If you wanted to, you could expand this thing. Basically build this again and again and again and again, and even better, you could string them all together, doesn't matter. So you could just keep like, you know, building out this way with hoppers and continue the mod and so on. Another great option for this farm would be stacking it upwards if you wanted to. You could do hoppers like up top and, you know, do the same exact thing. A different chest and even more mud and so on and so on. It's so simple. One thing to note is the fact that bamboo will not grow in complete darkness. That means if you're using fully solid building blocks and making it really big, remember to mix a light block in somewhere, every once in a while. 2 out of the 3 farms done and dusted in their little game that I like to call 3... Okay, I don't have a name for this. I'm considering making this a new series, but I need a name. Last and not least, our big brain, a very, very advanced farm today that is actually overflowing because it's so overpowered. Look at this thing in action. It uses the slime block harvester to go in and harvest this entire farm. I stopped this farm for a little while, so it kind of spilled everywhere. Typically it wouldn't. It would look something more like this. Build this farm in your world, let it constantly run, and this simple little minecart is going to pick up 99% of the bamboo drops from this farm. That extra 1%? Oh, trust me, you will not miss it here. Okay, so for this farm, before we talk about materials, I want to say that just like with the last farm and the other farm, you can build this as big or maybe as compact as you want. In my opinion though, building it more compact than this thing right here, technically possible, but probably not worth it. The materials that I'm going to show you for this farm are for the most compact version of this farm that I recommend building. I've got a lot going on here. In pretty much exact amounts here, building blocks, we're going to need plantable blocks, 2 stacks, and 3/4 of another stack. We're also going to need bamboo. Now, for our flying machine here, we're going to need these materials right there, plus a couple building blocks. When it comes to making sure our slime machine moves back and forth, we've got options. The easiest one, in my opinion, is a simple mob pressure plate combination, but a daylight sensor could work too. Inside of this farm, to efficiently unload everything from the minecart with a hopper, I've got a simple locking system. To build that locking mechanism, we're going to need these materials, plus some solid building blocks. Now, slime blocks, they like to stick to everything. We're going to need about 3 stacks of blocks the slime blocks will not stick to. Leaves, pumpkins, or glazed terracotta. Great options. A very sad reality for Bedrock Gang, but farm number 3, oh, it's iffy for Bedrock Edition. I'm not sure if all of this redstone is actually going to work on Bedrock. So, to get around that, build farm number 2 and just make it really, really big. To put the minecart line that I'm going to show you how to build in a minute right below the farm, and you'll be good. This farm is a little bit tricky. We'll split it up into a couple separate parts. We begin with the hopper drop-off collection system. Place double chests in the ground and then 2 hoppers going into the double chest. Going out of one of the hoppers that is on the outside of your farm, place a comparator. Comparator goes into a solid building block that has a redstone torch sitting on it. Above the redstone torch block, we place another solid building block. Right above the comparator, another solid building block. Finally, redstone repeater right there. After all of that, we do powered rail, powered rail. This simple mechanism right here is going to lock a hopper minecart on top of the hoppers. As soon as these hoppers get fully unloaded, the rails are powered again, and the minecart goes back on its way. Next up, let's take a look at the collection rails. The footprint of this farm is going to be 22 blocks by 8 blocks. It's going to be big, a lot of rails. You also need your rails to continuously weave together so the minecart will run underneath the entire farm. When you're setting this minecart line up, you've got a couple different options, but one thing you don't have a choice about is powered rails. Somewhere inside of this winding minecart line, you will need powered rails. How I'm going to do it on this farm is place 2 powered rails directly in the middle of every single straight shot line. If you do notice your cart stopping, well, then pretty simple. All you need to do is come back in, add a couple more powered rails. Once you get all the way to the end of this thing though, which for me is going to be this spot right here, you're going to want to place a solid block down right next to a powered rail. Place a lever on that block, turn it on, and the powered rail is powered. With this all set up right here, if you wanted to, at this point, you can go ahead and drop a hopper minecart in and let it start running. Or you can wait till later. Either way, check this out. With this line set up like this minecart will continuously run. It'll bounce off of the item collection system because nothing's in it right now, and go back on its way. So now, thank you, but you can stop it. It's time to set up the planting zone. The planting zone is going to begin above this hopper right here, and again, it's going to go 8 blocks long, which is going to line up with the back of your farm, and then 22 blocks, which is going to go all the way to the other side where the rails are. Your farm will end where the rails end. You're going to need to fill this thing in all the way. Now, when it comes to blocks you want to plant on, really doesn't matter. Anything that bamboo can be planted on will work. Bamboo doesn't grow faster or slower on any planting block. So, a little bit of time later, and we have a solid planting platform right up there. Now, next up, we're about to build a flying machine. A very, very simple one. But before we do that, we need to place some blocks down that sticky pistons will not be able to move. So I'm going to go ahead and link an article down in the description below with a list of blocks that would work for this. But a great option, like I said, pretty cheap too, leaves. Leaves are so easy to get. If you have a pumpkin farm, maybe you could do that. If you have a melon farm, you could do that. Or glazed terracotta if you're very, very fancy. Another option is obsidian, but it is expensive. We will use a very simple flying machine to harvest everything from this farm. To build that flying machine, start with a row of 8 slime blocks right there, and then 9, 10 right there. After that, we need an observer looking out, and then we need a sticky piston facing in. On the other side of this thing, we're going to need slime block right there, and we're going to flip around to the other side. We're going to do an observer looking out and a sticky piston facing in, and just like that. Now, you need to be careful here, because this machine will go and start going once you trigger it. To stop that from going, like, forever, place an obsidian block right here. That'll stop it on this side. On the flip side of this farm, we need an obsidian block placed out kind of randomly. What we're going to do is imagine a wall there, temporary block, another temporary, and then finally, I believe that should be the permanent obsidian block. We go ahead and get rid of all of that, place a lamp right there, and then on the other side, a redstone lamp. As soon as I place this thing, it's going to start moving from one side all the way to the other side. If you built your flying machine correctly, it will start doing this. And then if you have your obsidian block placed correctly, when it gets to the other side, oh, dang it. When it gets to the other side, it should stop. It looks like I need to move it one more though, so no big deal. Go ahead and trip the other observer. It'll go back to the other side, and yeah, so far so good. You'll know you've got it right when your flying machine or the slime block arm on the thing stops and lines up with the leaves on the outside of the farm. Next up, we need some walls on this farm to stop the bamboo from going everywhere. Now, if you want to, you could build these walls even taller, and you could even put a ceiling on this thing, but again, remember, bamboo needs light to grow. At minimum, I recommend making these walls 2 more layers, so in total 3 blocks tall. Also, when you're placing these things, try and minimize the gaps in the walls. So like in this corner right here, I fully filled that in. Any gaps means more bamboo gets out. The one side that's going to be different is going to be the back side, though, because we have this whole flying contraption, can't put blocks in the way. But what we can do is 1 line of blocks at the top on the back side of this thing. You end up with walls that look something like this. Next step, before we do anything else and really like basically finish up this farm, we need to place bamboo on the ground all over every single block inside of the farm. And then we're also going to need to finally get that hopper minecart in. So do those 2 things. Easiest way of all time to start that hopper minecart is place it right against the solid block with a powered rail on one side of your farm, and it should just start to go. Now we're also going to need a way to actually trigger our flying machine. When it comes to triggering the flying machine, you know, make it go back and forth, you've got options. You can do a daylight sensor, you can do a mob. I like the idea of a mob though, because it's so cheap and it's really easy to do. If we're going to use a mob to trigger this thing to go back and forth, place a pressure plate directly on top of the redstone lamp, and then build a small room around the redstone lamp. What you are going to have to do is make this room a little bit longer. It needs to be 3 blocks long, somehow, and in some direction. This seems to work better with the mob AI. Now, you can put any mob that you like in a world inside of this farm. Doesn't matter at all. All we need is a mob that will walk around on its own and sometimes tap the pressure plate to trigger the farm. However, maybe don't use chickens, because chickens walk around and drop eggs, and that egg might land on a pressure plate if you're using wooden ones and, you know, just sit there. Might not be exactly good. Put mobs inside of this farm, and look at that beauty. It's going to run and harvest everything. Now, as this thing runs, it will go back and forth and harvest all of the bamboo, throw it on the ground. Down below, we've got this minecart that's going to swoop around and pick everything up. Some bamboo will sometimes land on the top of the farm to get around that, maybe build a ceiling or something like that. And then sometimes the bamboo will get shot out of the farm. Getting shot out of the farm? I couldn't come up with a solution. But do we even need a solution? Because look at this. On one harvest, it swooped around and got 3 stacks of bamboo almost. Oh, it's beautiful, and it's so easy too. Bamboo farm, advanced but easy. That's it. If you're gonna make this farm bigger, what I recommend doing is make it longer, because flying machines have a limit as to how many blocks they can actually move. So with 8 blocks wide, we're kind of perfect right here. But with 22 blocks long, I mean, heck, why not double it? 44 blocks long? 128 blocks long? I don't know. It's up to you. Again, real sorry to Bedrock Gang for this farm, though. Build farm number 2, make it really big. 1 advanced bamboo farm, 1 kind of tricky bamboo farm, and a super simple beginner, beautiful bamboo farm. That's it. Those are the farms for today. If you'd like to see more of something like this, let me know by leaving a like, and if there's something you'd like to see me farm in 3 ways, comment it down below. Patron gang, big thank you, Rob, CK, and Louisiana Vader. I appreciate you greatly. I'll see all of you beautiful people in the next one. Goodbye.